introduction for those of you who haven't made it to a New Normal series session yet. Why New Normal? Okay, so Ryan from CoMotion Spaces and myself, we got together and we discussed the opportunity of putting together a speaker series to address a lot of the questions that that people have right now, a lot of the uncertainty that's going on. And we found that there's a very particular divide in people, different types of people who are either trying to sit back and wait till things go back to normal, and then a group of people who are really trying to understand how the world works now, knowing that things have likely changed in a lot of respects for good going forward, and how we are to adapt, how we are to look for innovations and figure out new processes and procedures so that we can not just sit back and wait for things to come back to us, but how we can succeed and thrive in this new landscape and in this new process that we have ahead of us. So we put together a new normal. The mandate here is for us to bring together professionals from widely varied backgrounds because we want to have a really organic and unique conversation and discussion between people. So we've figured that if we were to bring, the example I always use is if we had a panel of 3 realtors up here, then they're all going to have the same sort of type of conversation they have regularly. We're not sparking any new ideas, any new thought, anything interesting. So we want to bring people from widely varied professional backgrounds so that we have sort of an alchemy of discussion and interest. So we're very excited about this. We've had 2 sessions so far that have gone incredibly well. We're very excited to welcome Dr. Tamás Heidegger and Erika MacKay today, and I will give you a quick overview and bio on each of them. And just a heads up that while Ryan is joining us today and he is monitoring the technical side of things, he's doing a balancing act today. So I'll be taking care of the introductions and questions and that kind of thing. So starting off with Erika. So just a second here. So Erika MacKay is the founder of Niche for Design Incorporated, which is a commercial interior design firm which specializes in creating workplace solutions that support health and wellness. Erika is a registered interior designer with a passion for continuing education. In fact, she's been sharing her expertise with students at Conestoga College as a part-time instructor for the past 10 years. In addition to receiving various other business awards and nominations, Erika was honored in 2019 to be recipient of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce Young Entrepreneur Award. She is originally from New Brunswick, but after living in various Ontario cities, moved to Hamilton with her husband in 2012. And great friends. We love Erika. We've known you for several years now. I know Ryan's known you even longer. You're a big part of the CoMotion community early on. We were sad to see you leave the office, but then we ended up leaving ourselves, but we're all still connected, and welcome to the call. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brad.
All right. And our friend Dr. Tamás Heidegger received his Master's of Science degree from the Budapest University of Technology and Economics in Electrical Engineering and Biomedical Engineering in 2006 and 2008, respectively, then his PhD in 2011. His main field of research is on medical technologies, control, teleoperation of surgical robots, image-guided therapy, and assistive devices. Currently, he is associate professor at Óbuda University, serving as the director of university research, innovation, and service center, and as the technical lead of medical robots research at the Antal Becsi Center for Intelligent Robotics. He is also a research area manager at the Austrian Center of Medical Innovation and Technology, working on minimally invasive surgical simulation and training, medical robotics, and usability workflow assessment through ontologies. Tamás is the co-founder of a university spin-off company called Hand and Scan, which is an integrative system that focuses on objective hand hygiene control in medical environments, and is a member of the World Health Organization POPs group. Tamás is the author and co-author of over 250 scientific papers, books, articles across the various domains of biomedical engineering, with over 1,500 independent citations to his work. And he has been running a professional blog on medical robotic technologies for over 12 years. And that is at surgrob.blogspot.com. And we'll add that into the comments for anybody who would like to check that out.
Yeah, that's surgrob, then it's easier to find.
Added that to the comments so that anybody that wants to check that out can. Thank you very much, Tamás, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. Okay, so give me just a second here, and I will grab our topics and questions. Okay, so again, the primary purpose of this speaker series is to have new, unique conversation, talk about new ideas, have organic discussion surrounding those ideas, and see what we can come up with, and see what comes out of these conversations, and just kind of run with them. So please don't filter your answers, don't filter your conversations at all. Come as you are. We're happy to have you, and we're excited to hear what you have to say. We'll start off with question 1. What broad behavioral changes have you seen trending as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how do you see these trends affecting business operations in short term and long term? Either of you want to start with that?
I can jump in. I think the biggest thing is that as businesses, we are now recognizing that we have a responsibility to be health conscious. And I think the good news is, in a lot of ways, businesses were already starting to recognize that they had to be kind of concerned about health as it relates to their staff especially, but even to other people that are interacting with their business. This was happening even before COVID. Obviously, my area of expertise being the built environment, health and wellness, things like connection between physical and mental health, and then the impact of the built environment on health was already becoming really important. So I think we're going to see businesses picking up on that as a responsibility a lot more moving forward.
Absolutely. Dr. Heidegger, do you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I want to second that on one hand, but I also see that kind of there's a mixed mindset, at least around us here. I'm seeing mostly Hungary, partially Austria, but since we're working together with our US friends a lot, I can also get a sense what's happening over there, at least in their environment. So in the vicinity of people, what we see, we try to care for each other a little more. So looking at who needs help, who needs what help, because we all understand we're vulnerable because it's something invisible that attacks us. But in the broader sense, all of a sudden, we are becoming more aware of the danger that an unknown person with an unknown background can hold to us. And that includes business as well. So meeting business partners, it's not like, oh, hi, so good to see you, hug and everything. Everything is the social distancing. I think it's a really good word for what's happening also in the business. So it's business distancing. We don't want to get too close too quickly. Let's see what's really behind you. Let's see how safe your processes are, and then we can start talking about business. So we have seen quite a bit of fine tuning in terms of the tune and the discussions happening over here.
Love that. So that's great, because that's something that hasn't really come up much in our sessions, is the psychological counterpart to distancing, right? Introducing the idea of distancing in the first place definitely expands out to the idea of, okay, what other ways might we want to hold back or be cautious of, and that kind of thing. That's interesting. And then your earlier point as well about seeing the sort of two-prong or duality behind different mindsets. You know, you certainly have people who are out there who are willing to be more helpful and who are trying to find a way to work together through this. And then you have other people, probably likely in your experience with US counterparts, where we can see a lot in the media with people who are very standoffish and focused inward and that kind of thing. So I'll put that back to you, Erika, with those psychological factors, and then as well with the duality that we're seeing a lot in opinions in society. what kinds of things do you think that is going to have an effect on in more of the long term? Like, what kind of trends do you think are going to develop out of that?
Yeah, I think it's early to know for sure, but obviously there's lots of things we can speculate on. I can certainly appreciate that sort of duality of some companies turning very much inward and some individuals turning very much inward and being afraid in a lot of ways of liability and getting sick and all of these other things that go along with the uncertainty of the world we're currently living in. But I also think that we've seen lots of examples that it's provided strengthening of communities, whether that be residential communities or communities of businesses, and people really have stepped up and shown their true colors and looked for opportunities to support each other. I know in Hamilton, definitely we've seen a lot of that, a lot of businesses that have really taken this opportunity to be present and to do what they can, however small of an impact that might have. So I think I've actually had this conversation with a lot of business owners about what we did during this time and how that's going to impact business moving forward. I think that you'll start seeing candidates in interviews, for example, asking a business, what did you do during COVID? And that being a factor in whether a candidate chooses that they want to work with your team or not, for example. Maybe even on the client side, that might be impactful. Seeing what a business is doing during such a challenging time says a lot about their character and what they really stand for. So that will be significant, I think.
Let me tap in.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to say that, and the same stands for the companies. So if you ask a company, what did you do in COVID? And they said, like, we locked down and suffered. And say, like, well, of course, there are certain businesses like tourism, not much you can really do, except for prepare for reopening. But in many other cases, IT and services, if they started to come up all the alternative ways, or they used in a structured way their free time to do something new and nice, I mean, that's something we can reward. And I would be happy to invest in those companies which say, like, we found that, like, this 3-4 months gave us enough time to pivot or work on something new, a new product, new ideas, whatever.
Yeah. And in reality, I think, sorry, I was going to say every business has probably suffered to some capacity on this. So I think either way that's impacted, even the ones that, like tourism, for example, that really couldn't do anything. There's always something you can do. You can take that time to retool or to work on marketing or operations, or just do anything, whatever you can do that's the most impactful to continue to help your clients and just to prepare for as things continue to evolve.
Yeah. So Erika, I love that you brought up the rallying of communities that we've seen during this time, and I agree that's been one of the really great silver linings of this whole thing, is just seeing how the communities have rallied around small businesses, how small businesses have joined together to find new inspirational ways and innovative ways to present their businesses as joint ventures. I know Cameron on our call right now, he's looked at things like that. I know that our last guest from Shift and another organization came together to find a way to work on things together. Caro Restaurant and Bitten Cupcakes, like just all these kinds of new things coming together were really great to see. I'm interested, Dr. Heidegger, if because your work takes place in internationally in a lot of ways, do you see that same kind of rallying and coming together between different countries and different organizations that you see?
I would say yes and no, because in multiple hats that I'm wearing, I've seen different things. So in one hand, on the really the business side, we had to find alternative ways, and especially since one of our technologies is particularly focusing on hand hygiene, and actually the device itself is just behind you. So people can, there it is. So it's a hand hygiene scanner. So we can tell how well you're able to clean your hands, which has utmost importance in preventing virus and germs and everything else to spread. So from that aspect, so like people understood this is a great opportunity as well. We need to move forward, push, but you're not allowed to move out. You're not allowed to go into a hospital. You're not allowed to do any of your regular, not even sales pitch, but there's not even a traditional form of awareness raising. You can't put a campaign easily out there. So we really had to find, and endorse the new ways, which for some, and I think this is the key, for some age groups, X, Y, whatever generation Z, as we moved on, it's normal. But for whatever I am and above, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the commercials and reaching out to people and having meaningful conversations in those online platforms was not part of their daily life. And this changed. So this opened up the whole new range of society to these technologies, which we can leverage from the technology point of view and from the small businesses point of view, especially because if you're moving quick enough, you can now generate new content. And through these new channels, you can really address your communication to other age groups than before.
Yeah. Have either of you seen a really great example of an updated form of communication or education surrounding this issue right now?
Oh, definitely. So in my university we started to develop a new ventilator system to make sure that there are going to be enough hardware to keep people who are now like collapsing under COVID, just in case. And that was given a lot of media attention. So they were asking for interviews and such. And at the beginning, they were asking like, oh, if we wear masks, could we just come into the university and make the shooting? And it's like, sorry, no, like it doesn't. I mean, one thing that we don't want you to get sick if we are already kind of contagious, but even worse, like you don't want to just spread the disease to the whole development community who is working on a solution for the disease. So that means like they had to comply with those rules and regulations that like, no, you're not allowed to shoot on site. So endorsing Skype, Zoom, other alternatives for the general public media, and we are talking about large national TV channels, that is completely new for them. Scheduling things there.
Yeah.
You have to fight with the quality, the sound quality, lighting, whatever. And I was happy to see that because that opened up all the possibilities for them as well to shoot at new areas and with new people.
All right. So that leads us pretty well into our second question with regards to different emerging processes and things like that. So, with regards to setting up those types of engagements or interviews or, filming and that kind of thing, can you outline for us some of the emerging and innovative processes you've seen put into action, including different challenges that you've had with it and successes that you've encountered along the way?
Personally, the biggest challenge for me is planning or the lack of planning. So I've had to strictly regulate my life, schedule everything, a lot of international travels. And I think on travels, you can catch it the most, that's the best example, that I used to be able to buy anything, anytime in terms of air tickets, and maybe the price was higher, but not even always. So you could just travel all around the world anytime. Now I don't even dare to buy a plane ticket a month ahead, 2 months ahead of time, because I have no clue whether if I land in Canada tomorrow, will they let me in? By the time you get to the airport, your plane takes off and things can change. And no matter how well you are able to or trying to avoid these kind of business risks, and this affects now your supply chain, your partners, your communication lines, any of your employees. So if they fall sick, you need to have a fallback plan, because there's no other option. Then it's like these are external circumstances, no regular planning or no regular unsafe kind of planning gonna assure you here the success. So you have to be way more flexible than before.
Yeah. So then what types of processes or procedures have you put into place to overcome that?
Everything with a flexible attitude. So no more rigid planning, no more tight packing up schedules and everything, like trying to loosen up everything. And also during the process of putting together even an order for new parts and components, we have to take that into account. What if? Yep. So then looking for alternative suppliers, also geographically looking around. Okay, who is still available? Which direction can a good even leave a country at this stage? So these are always new. And without the internet, I don't think we would be able to do that. So I'm really glad that this did not come 10 years ago. We would have been bankrupt by now, I'm sure.
So I want to come back to that flexibility in just a minute, but I want to sort of put that over to you as well, Erika. In the business spaces, in preparing business spaces for health and wellness, what kind of things are you now taking into consideration, and what kind of innovations are you working on to be able to better prepare spaces for people to be able to come back to the workplace in a safe and healthy way?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for us, it's been a lot of the same strategy that a lot of businesses have taken in terms of how to be innovative and pivot in a way that makes us sustainable right now. And for us, that's really been about maintaining focus on our own core competencies and the evolving needs of our clients. Really, at the end of the day, our job is still to create spaces for people to work, whether they're at home or in the office. The well-being of a team and really how to support that with the physical environment is what we're all about. And those are the goals we're trying to help our clients achieve. So certainly we had to pivot a little bit. We still have some, what I would call somewhat normal office projects on the go. We also are working a lot more with businesses to help them when they have staff working from home, because sometimes that is the best option. And I will firmly say it isn't the best option for every individual or every business. But when it is, there are considerations from a health and safety standpoint, even that businesses need to be taking into account. One of the biggest ones being ergonomics. I'm sure many people who are listening to this can attest to the fact that we were all kind of suddenly working from home. Many of us didn't have a proper office setup to work from, and that's okay for a little while. But for a lot of people, that ends up being quite literally painful, like physically painful, not to mention the kind of implications of distractions and acoustics and all of that stuff. So we are helping on that side of things. And then in terms of businesses like my own, who are getting ready to bring their teams back into the conventional office space, we've had a lot of conversations around flexibility. So a lot of companies, my own included, are adopting a fairly flexible model in how people come back to the office. So depending on how dense of an occupancy they have, like how much space per person is kind of inherently part of their layout, we've been working with them to adjust space planning so that people are able to more easily maintain social distance at their workstations as well as while they move through the space. We've also worked with a lot of companies to help them kind of figure out what that path of travel does look like throughout the day for their employees. That's really the best way of identifying where there might be areas of concern from a health standpoint and in spreading COVID. So looking at where are high-touch surfaces and what kind of protocols can be put in place cleaning-wise, but also just, can we leave the doors open and have one be an indoor and one be an outdoor? Can we assign, if you have two staircases, can one be an upstairs and one be a downstairs? Little things like that that can go a long way. Even training is another huge one. We worked with a company that had their employees in cubicles, which kind of worked in terms of separation, but they needed to be able to work on things together or train. So we were able to come up with solutions for placing televisions in places that were visible for more than one person, even from a distance, things like that. So it's been a lot of like really creative planning and figuring out how to manage with the function that they need, but in a way that still allows people to be safe in the office.
Yeah, that's great. There's a common theme that keeps coming up of, one of the primary focus, or two of the primary focus areas are just being flexible and pre-planning.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds to me like we're all just going through this, learning how to be better human beings. It's funny. We've worked with Path Employment Services in town, which find long-term meaningful employment for people who struggle with different disabilities or who are marginalized in one way or another. And we talk about the different types of innovations that come up to serve and assist different people with physical or mental disabilities, and how they end up just being a better support for everybody. Like curb cuts is a great example of that. When you cross the street and you go from the sidewalk and you're going across the road, having that dip in the curb cut that takes you on a gentle grade down to the road is just better for everybody.
Yeah. And it's simple.
And it's such a simple thing. And I think that's one of the common things that we're finding with this as well, is that a lot of the innovations that have come out of this, a lot of the considerations, the perspective shifts, you know, and mindset and that kind of thing, being more patient, being more flexible, rallying together as a community, planning things better. Like these all just sound like great things to carry forward to just, you know, be better people in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do not forget that in the meanwhile, we got social distance, we wear masks and other things which act on the contrary. So it's much harder on the boss. I mean, there's no more smiling at each other, no more random meeting. You would never sit down with, you know, a blind date or whatever, because like, I don't know what's going on there. So it acts pro and con, this thing. But it also, whoever is capable of becoming a better person, hopefully now they're given a chance to prove it. And I think that's important on the business side. So CSR is there, it's improving. But also one thing that I think really lies in this way, that it really improved the value of the good human resource. So if you have an employee or even an employer, but now the employee who you trust, you can trust, they are behaving nicely, they're adapting nicely to these conditions. They even survive with you, and you can transfer their workforce into, you know, working from home office and such. It's even more valuable than you would have thought before. And for that, you really need to invest into them and keep them close to you. And I think this is one of the big lessons we learned, that like, try to keep them well. So listen to them, really stroke them often, and make them feel good about the work, because otherwise if you lose them, it's going to be much harder to recruit another one, and it's going to just have, you know, not everything is way more complicated to set up. It's not just like, this is going to be your office, sit down and enjoy the training and everything, because it's such a pain to, for example, just reinvent the way you can train people. Yep. And I see that as a mass. At the university, we have like 4,000 new students every year. And, you know, there used to be orientation week, actually, the whole week of like thousands of students getting together, getting to know each other. How can you move that online? Like, how can you can do the I don't know, fire hazard training as a streaming. No one cares for that. But the bounds that are actually formulating for the first week of intensive, I'm here the first time, I'm just a rookie like everyone else around in the room, that sometimes makes the best friends for the next 3-4 years. And that can be life-changing, and it's really, you really gonna need those good guys who are gonna help you fight through the first exam period and such. And I'm really, really worried that when we get to the exam period, the next semester, we're gonna see the lack of this social network that could not formulate for the juniors. That's gonna have a toll on them.
Yeah. Do you think that, so I guess that's a good question to pose to you as well. So as far as, you know, as your best, most educated, informed guess, you know, how temporary do you see the current state of things right now on a global scale? When do you think we'll be able to, you know, ideally take some of the positivity and some of the silver linings and lessons that we've learned through this phase and sort of move into a stage where, you know, we can start bringing some of those niceties and personable activities and that kind of thing back?
It's really hard to come up with even an educated guess, because if you look left, let's say Brazil, India, entire Africa, the worst part is yet to come.
Yeah.
So as soon as you reshuffle things, the same here. Just yesterday, the Hungarian government announced again that they're gonna lock down some borders, again, do a lot more intensive control and quarantining and all those things, because they see the rise of the numbers all around. But the measurement protocols are not standardized. The reporting protocol are totally obscure in some countries. So you don't even know what you know, or you don't know what you don't know, which means that as long as you do not have an immediate test which can like prove you good or bad, like it's a discrimination. And we are just now fighting against discrimination in so many forms. And then just because like, oh, you are coming from a country where there were, you know, like 10 times more cases than in mine, who cares? I mean, if you and your surrounding did well, most probably because the numbers, except for some highly densely populated area like New York and other areas, the numbers in total are still low. So we are again like pushing back probably too much. So I would personally say that as long as you are protecting yourself, as long as you are doing everything reasonable, hand hygiene, mask wearing, social distancing, really looking at your own symptoms. So what used to be the normal, like people get on the bus and then just like coughing all around, that has to get to an end. And that's good for the whole humanity. So if we get through that, hopefully, as we always say, like we can keep, even when the curve starts rising, we can become again more aware of that and keep everything pushed down. But we need real-time information and access to clarity.
Yeah. Hopefully that comes sooner than later. But,
there's politics then, because it's a
Yeah.
big gambling now, because some people want to say like, oh, I love whatever this guy's doing, so I would just support and claim he's good, even though objectively he's not doing good at fighting COVID on a national level.
Yeah.
So this has become a real mess.
I want to take a quick step back. Earlier, we had a great conversation between the two of you with regards to, some of the positive things that have come out of this, and then, on the contrary, some of the negative. And I want to pose this to you, Erika, because, with regards to working in spaces in particular, I believe anyway, so coming from a sort of narrative standpoint, I believe that in the world, the way that it operated previously, we had a lot of people that thrived in that environment, and then there were a lot of people that really struggled with having to go into a social environment, some kind of group culture on a daily basis, and was a mental wear on a lot of people. And it was sort of a silent thing. A lot of people didn't really talk about it because there wasn't anything they could do about it. And then now we have a lot of people who, not everybody, but a lot of people are working from home. You're less so put in those social situations. And you find that the people who gravitate towards those social situations are in a hard place mentally and they're struggling. But the people who were struggling before are now doing great. So what is that? Now that we have taken the cat out of the bag, we know that that this exists. We know that, full well, without people having to really tell us, that there are two different types of people that thrive in two different types of environments. What does that mean for the future of workspaces?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the reality is that there's even more than two types of people in terms of how we interact with the physical space and where we're working, especially. And all of this that we're realizing about the differences in terms of what each individual needs to work effectively and be comfortable and mitigate stress and all of these things, we already kind of knew this. And I've said to a lot of people over the course of the last few months that as it relates to workspace design, it feels like everything we've been talking about for the last 5, even 10 years, and has just sort of been industry chatter, has now, it's like we've moved forward a whole decade, almost overnight. And particularly as it relates to this sort of individual difference in what really works best in a work environment. And this comes back again, I feel like I'm saying flexibility a million times, but it's true. It all comes back to the reality that we need to incorporate some level of flexibility. And actually this goes for the employees in terms of being able to kind of get to understand and choose, or at least have some influence in deciding the way and the place that they work in. So the days of, here's 100 cookie cutter cubicles, have a seat and this is your new home, that's just not going to fly for organizations that really want to be seen as innovative, and organizations that really need to promote creativity and need their employees to be their best, because that's not the best environment probably for most people, even arguably, but even within my own network for sure, and even within my own team, I've seen some employees who, like you said, 100% thrive. If they never went back to the office again, they would be perfectly fine with that. And in contrast, I've also seen the people who are just dying to get back to the office and have that social interaction. The one piece that I think is particularly interesting, though, is it seems regardless of which side of that you're on, or if you're like me, I think I'm somewhere in the middle probably. I kind of like working from home, but not all the time. But regardless of where you sit on that, the one piece that's really missing across the board, and that's most concerning to me as a business owner and someone who values innovation and creativity, is the loss of these impromptu interactions. So the sort of water cooler talk, for example, and the ideas that come out of that, I really believe that some of the best ideas, the most creative solutions come from not the planned meeting that we have in Zoom and log on to every Wednesday at 2:00, but the sort of accidental casual conversations. And we're really missing that right now. And the other piece is connection too. We know it's super important for members of a team to develop meaningful connections with the other people they're working with. It makes them care more about their work. It makes them perform better. And by not having those impromptu communication, again, we're really limiting the extent to which team members can develop those kind of connections that are so valuable. So that's the piece that worries me the most, I think, as it relates to how everyone works differently.
Let me second Erika, because personally I have the most problem with that. The inefficiency for this fully online and fully virtual existence comes at a point when there's a critical situation. And in an online meeting, there is yes and no only. You don't see the non-verbal communication of there. It's really hard to see whether they still had something. You should have worked a little more on that. Someone still had an idea, because you don't even see their face while they're making like, but then it just goes away. So all those flexibility that a normal in-person meeting may have, and you can, if you're a good listener, or just like open to the other, then you can get way more input than just via even one-on-one Zoom meetings and others. The other thing I wanted to say that despite this kind of like, okay, some people can actually work independently from home, and so good, because this becoming the new normal. So you can't, even big companies could manage that now. Why couldn't they continue providing a one-day home office or so every so often? But there is a not insignificant proportion of the people who took this, the easy end. And while they were very convincing everyone that they are super hardworking at home, they actually never achieved anything. And I think monitoring, currently it seems like unethical from the company side to monitor anyone being in the home office, because that's new normal. Why are you imposing more monitoring on me? But I think there's going to be a setback, or kind of like a negative wave coming after a couple of months, when the productivity at certain areas or with certain people obviously falls. Then companies going to push back and say like, sorry, you can work at home, but then I really still want you to make it a home office. So there are going to be requirements. How much time you spend in front of your screen? What do you really do? How do you monitor you? And then that's going to make it a little less comfortable for people. So then some of these people are going to move back rather to the office setup and say like, well, yeah, let's just keep it normal.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I mean, taking into consideration that that people are people, and if you all of a sudden start, the people are working from home, and all of a sudden you're starting to, call it impose different types of tracking and that kind of thing. I mean, that is a pretty overt way to, remove a sense of trust between you and that individual. And, we all know that feeling respected and valued is a tremendous part of what keeps people interested at a job and wanting to be there. Even pay is certainly secondary to that in a lot of cases. So, how do we, I know with our team in particular, we have a small team. I know Erika has a small team, and I know in small teams like this, it takes a lot to really build them and get them to become a great, respectful family of people that you absolutely trust implicitly. But in larger organizations, that's got to be a much more difficult thing to do. So, what are some things that you could see being put into place, or what kind of ideas do you think people could use, or different companies could use, to find a way to ensure that their staff is doing what's needed to be done, but not doing it in such a way to, tread on their respectful relationship, so to speak?
I can chime in on that one. I do think it's one of the moments where I'm grateful to have a small and manageable team, I guess.
Likewise, yeah.
But still, it's an enormous additional responsibility and challenge, I think, for all business owners and managers, regardless of the size of team you're managing, to be able to find that balance between flexibility, understanding, and compassion, because this is a complicated time, both personally and professionally for most people. But as it relates to larger organizations, I think it's really about getting creative again and thinking about what really are the core metrics that are important for your business. How have they changed? Because likely they've changed quite significantly right now. You know, what really is the minimum amount of whatever measurable metric that needs to be happening, and make it easy to follow. I mean, people, even under normal circumstances, employees are motivated for the most part about being able to understand where they're at and how they're doing. Don't just assume that your team knows how they're doing and what is expected of them. So I think additional time on the part of managers in clarifying expectations, quantifying expectations as much as possible, and giving their teams metrics so they really can see how they're doing and can try to meet goals that are relevant right now, even if they might be completely different than what's normal.
Yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to add to that, it has become much harder to ask for help, because it has a sign. So you can have your small talk over the coffee, like, hey, do you know how to do this and that? And it's just casual. Here you have to type an email, I need help. First, to admit that you need that, it's much harder. Then it's documented, you didn't know what to do. And then whatever you get, I mean, it's a different attitude. It's so in many aspects that puts a lot bigger pressure on people, I believe, and it's not for everyone. The other thing where we have significant issues, I believe, is the not so creative jobs when you are allowed, or you can imagine numerous jobs when like, this is an 8-hour shift, you have to sit there for 3 hours, then you get 15 minutes on the toilet or whatever, 35 minutes for lunch, then you get back, but you go home and you forget about what you're doing, full stop. And that just cannot, even if it's a non-physical work, it cannot be done in home office in such ways, unless, like continuous web camera overview or whatever, which probably goes beyond the privacy that you want to sacrifice. But so people are now, on a sort of casual basis, sacrifice more of their time, understanding that my flexibility towards my family at home creates or requires more time altogether to do the same amount of work, which means that instead of working 8 hours strict, it's probably 10 hours in home office, because you need to take out the dog, get some breakfast, or you fetch the mail, whatever. And these things seem normal, but on the other hand, this also means that time-wise, it's 8 p.m. and still on the phone, like it's 4 a.m., like someone wanted to make a phone call with me. So these kind of flexibilities are inconvenient, because it's eating up your privacy. And the same thing, the reason why we are given a cell at work or in the laptop, because then we carry it at home and we can, if you open a pot, your business mail immediately there, your boss can still ring you anytime. And these things gonna just infiltrate into our private life, which is not healthy in the long term. Well, I'm actually working 16 hours a day anyway, but it's still, I don't think it's healthy.
Entrepreneur life, #entrepreneur life. And I think it's definitely important, and it's the responsibility of the person working to draw that line for themselves. But it's really critical for managers, owners, bosses, that kind of thing, to make sure that they're vocal and consistently vocal about managing that line as well, to say, like, I am not going to call you past this time. If I send you an email, do not respond after this hour. It's okay to have your life, because in a lot of cases, again, from the owner of a small business, and Erika, you might feel the same way about this. It's hard for us to shut off, and there are these are our babies, and if something comes to mind, or we get an email from somebody and it's 10 at night, it doesn't matter. We need to address that somehow. And certainly we're not going to call on anybody that we work with to address that at 10 at night or 11 at night or whatever. But, it might be easier for us to send that email then, but then drawing that line and saying, if you get an email from me, like, turn your notifications off after 5 so you don't get anything till the next day, but like, be constantly communicative about that, because otherwise people can feel, guilty I've
but that's part of the entrepreneur life. That's how you motivate people. When you send them 4 a.m. your email like, hey, I got a great idea. What about this and that? And they reply at 5 a.m. Then you reply at 5:15, and then by 6 a.m. you already made an hour-long phone call with them. And now it's actually getting kind of normal because like everyone shifted, at least those with kids in my age, that they're like, okay, I can work from 4 till 7, 8 until they wake up, and then between like 8 and 10 it's impossible to do anything because they're not going to be quiet and they're going to be all around. So everyone shifts to the early morning, at least here, and I wonder how this is going to change back or not after COVID, because people might say like, I still prefer those quiet early morning times or not.
Yeah, and that definitely is going to work for some people. And again, one thing that a lot of people have known for a long time, but it's starting to come much more to the forefront these days, is that so many people are motivated by different things. So many people are comfortable in different environments. With regards to a lot of social equality and things, those kinds of issues that have come up as well. Like they've been there forever. We've known about these things forever. But I think, a lot of what's happened lately with everybody being kicked out of autopilot, basically for the past 4 months, 5 months, people are starting to take notice of these things much more so than they would before, and they're starting to take action on things, which it is definitely a silver lining. We have about 9 minutes left in our hour. If we bleed over a little bit, that's totally fine. But just out of respect for everybody who signed on to attend and for your time as well, I just want to pose one last question to see if I can get some of the creative juices going. So looking into your crystal ball, what ripple effect do you think we'll see 6 months to a year from now as a result of the impact and response to the pandemic that we've already seen and experienced? What do we think the world's going to look like 6 years, a month from now? What kind of interesting changes are we going to see then?
I'll jump in on that. I do think this is going to last for a while, and obviously we have no way of knowing for sure. Maybe there'll be a vaccine in 6 months and that'll be the end of it, but I think more likely than not, this will go on a lot longer. So I still think we'll be seeing a lot of people dealing with the benefits and challenges of working from home, as well as modifying their existing workspaces to suit sort of physical distancing and all of these additional kind of health and safety protocols that likely will stick around well beyond the year even, I would imagine. And I think just really taking the opportunity to learn from what we've been through over this time, and everything we mentioned about understanding that what is the best fit for one individual, or similarly one business, is not the best fit for another. And we'll be seeing companies recognize that they need more options, and you'll see businesses be a little more risk adverse, probably still for another year or maybe even longer, which in terms of space will mean companies prioritizing things like shorter term leases, spaces that are move-in ready. I do think we have already seen this, but I think it's going to stick around for at least another year or so, where companies are a bit hesitant to take on new spaces that require significant investments, because it's just, there's too many unknowns right now. So because of that, I think we'll see a lot of satellite offices in smaller municipalities where employees have gotten used to not having to commute 2-3 hours a day, and companies might feel compelled, as a means of reducing occupancy in larger centralized head offices, to create smaller ones. I'm hearing a lot in our industry too. Co-working, I think, is going to do well for that reason. And also, I think we'll start seeing more of a sort of hybrid co-working model, where again, spaces are a little more move-in ready, not needing this significant amount of work that they typically do. And I think on the employee side, you're just going to see an expectation of understanding and realizing that people have families and children, and homeschooling maybe even longer, like just all of these different requirements that were not an issue before. And so we're going to have to just continue to pivot as needed and make changes and evaluate day to day kind of how things are going, and work collectively to come up with the best solutions.
Awesome. Love it. Tamás?
I would kind of like split the private life or the society and the business part. And I would be happy to imagine it is like in the Wall-E, the Pixar movie, when you know the super fat humans on the spaceship, they all have the VR glasses, and then all of a sudden they take it off, and then, oh, we are free. Look around, like, oh, the others are here and we are safe and we can interact again, like, so wonderful, and like rejoicing and in rediscovering the world as is, and saying, oh, it's so beautiful. I can go outside again. I can enjoy just a walk that I haven't done in 10 years just because I was locked down for a week or two. So I would be happy to see that families getting together, appreciating time spent close together, appreciating going to a concert, to a movie theater, those things that you probably didn't go for years, but the fact that you could not made you angry and made you really gave you cravings and everything. So that's one end. So I hope we will see more of the positive. But I know that many people got left behind, and for them it's gonna be it's still a miserable time, and they're probably never gonna recover from either the health condition or the mental condition of getting depressed and feeling alone. And we have to be way more sensitive towards them. And just I'm really much afraid, and this is still on the personal side, that due to the COVID and the fear of COVID, for example, just in New York area, 90% less people reported to the ER with heart attack symptoms for the past 3 months. 90% less. And that doesn't mean there are less heart attacks. It means that people in the fear of COVID, and the same results here in Europe, that people to the fear of COVID, they do not turn to medical attention when they would really, really need it. Yeah. And even if they survive, they're going to have serious consequences on their life and shortening because they did not get the right treatment at the right time. So such conditions and all the elective surgeries getting postponed and such, it's not good for the society, and it really affects us. And the same happens on the business side. So the lockdown and tourism, and here, for example, look at Germany, the automotive industry, the way that they stop, but it's going to hurt us as well. Hungary, like I think 20% of our FDI, the foreign direct investment, comes into the automotive industry in Hungary. We are really exposed to that. And when it stops, it means thousands of people lose the job. We already had like big construction plans and everything seemed to be going nice and well. But then all those developments are stopped now. So entire regions which trusted that hey, for the next 20, 30 years, they're going to have new developments, new job opportunities. That's going to start rearranging even like internal migrations and everything, because people are going to look for alternative opportunities. So I'm really afraid that we're going to see a lot of the backlash in six months to a year when companies they run out of cash, they run out of opportunities, they have nothing to sacrifice anymore. So if it continues that way and we're going to see new round, that's not going to be nice.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the whole reason why we're here together on this speaker series is to talk about, highlight and just have open discussion on innovations and processes and procedures that have come up that are making things better, or things that, are influencing the world in a positive way throughout all of this, how we can get ahead of the curve, all that kind of stuff. But I think, to your point, Tamás, it's really important as well to understand as much as we're trying to thrive and get ahead of the curve, a lot of people are in a much more precarious situation. A lot of people don't have the same opportunities and choices that we might have. And so, being mindful of being considerate of that is incredible. I mean, from a personal standpoint, so many things have changed in our life, and my wife has not been able to work since this has happened. She's not going to be working going forward. So we, with the challenges that the school systems are going to see coming up in September, we decided that we were going to just continue homeschooling our kids. And even on this call, for anyone that has kids who is unable to do that, I feel horrible for that. And I've had many conversations with people about that. Yeah, we're doing this, we're making these changes, and we're going to do that. And then immediately, as soon as that comes out of my mouth, I realize that we're fortunate to be able to do that, and that not everybody's going to have that. And so we need to, I need to check myself, and I need to figure out a better way to communicate that to people, because, I'm sure people on the other side of that conversation are thinking, well, that, if I had that choice, or whatever, and they're in a bad position, and we certainly, nobody on this call wants anybody to feel bad or diminished in any way. So yeah, absolutely. I think that is along with trying to stay ahead of the curve, along with trying to be innovative, trying to stay positive and find the good in this situation. It's also critically important to understand that if we are able to make a positive out of this negative, then we are incredibly fortunate, and that's not everybody. Yeah, just something definitely to take away. We're at time right now. I just wanted to say this is a great conversation. I really appreciate the both of you, Erika, Tamás. Thank you so much for your time. To my partner in crime on this, Ryan, thank you so much. It's a great series. We're having a lot of fun with this so far, and we'll continue on with this in another 2 weeks on Tuesday. And I just wanted to say that I think the general themes that have come up during this conversation have been fantastic. Having flexibility, pre-planning, and then being compassionate and considerate of people in this time of crisis, I think, are 3 fantastic takeaways to come from this conversation. I also wanted to thank everybody who joined us on the call today. I hope that you guys got at least one takeaway from this, and that it was worth your time. Again, we're doing this every 2 weeks, so we'd love for you to sign on next time. Erika, did you have any final words that you wanted to say before we sign off?
Just thank you for including me in this. It was a pleasure to get to speak with you and have this discussion. I think there's a lot to be learned from these conversations, and I appreciate being part of it.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're going to keep the conversation going. Tamás, did you have any final remarks?
Same here. It was a great pleasure, and thank you so much, and hope to see a little more interaction from the others. So if you have questions and such, feel free to shoot an email or put it in the chat, because we will be happy to answer. I mean, this is just on the top of our heads, but naturally it's important to see what's in your mind, and anyone can have a best solution for these times. So we are trying to keep everything open, as you said, and don't forget to wash your hands.
Great way to sign off. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay in good spirits, and we'll see you on the next session.